Well, if you would, open your Bible to Exodus chapter 15. That's where we're going to be today, Exodus chapter 15. And we're going to be talking about attaching to God. What does that look like? So before we dive in, there's a couple things that I want to make you aware of. So this is the time of the year where we give to our Dixie-Jackson offering. Our Dixie-Jackson offering is the offering that goes to the state convention to help do missions here in Arkansas. And so we have the opportunity as a church to support what's going on here. And a lot of what they do is disaster relief. They do church planting. They assist churches that are struggling or just churches that need resources. And so this is a way for us to help churches that are in Arkansas be able to love the people around them. And so this goal is $4,000 for our church. And so if you want to begin praying about what you can give to that, you can do that. And you can either write a check or you can give online as well. Another missions opportunity that you have coming up in just a few weeks, September 26th through the 28th, Rob Burns is going to be here with us. If you've ever wondered about being a missionary, or you're kind of entertaining the idea of maybe being a missionary in Wales for a season, we've talked. We have a partnership there. This would be a great weekend for you to be a part. So our church will get to hear from Rob and hear what's going on in Wales and how the mission is going, and we can ask some questions. But we're also going to have a special luncheon that day for anyone interested in wanting to get connected and maybe serve as an intern or a missionary there in Wales. All right? So those two things just kind of keep on your radar. But let's dive into our text today. So we're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 15. And we're in the middle of a series on spiritual warfare, and we've been talking about spiritual warfare, and we've come to the part where we're really looking at kind of the practical application of that and how we apply that specifically to our life. And last week we said really the step one of beginning the journey after God calls us, after we receive the gospel, is to decide to follow Him, to choose. So we said there was the C, choose, A is attach, and P is practice. Okay, so you can remember that through the word CAP. Today we are talking about attaching. Okay, so first is to choose. I'm going to set the compass of my heart on Jesus every single day. Okay. Now, remember when we looked at the story of Israel coming out of Egypt, Israel had done nothing to deserve God redeeming them. The only reason God redeemed them is because He had chosen Israel. He had said, you're my people. He'd given them a promise. They had done nothing to earn this. But when God brought them out, they decided, tentatively, and we're going to see today, often turning back to follow. But after we decide, after we begin that journey, it is so very important that we learn to attach. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So decision leads to attachment. I want to talk to you for a second about attachment styles. Now, this is a kind of a newer work in the last 20 or 30 years in psychology. They begin to understand that our attachment that we have in the early stages of life has a lot to do with how we form relationships later on. And so Christian psychologists have picked up on this as well and realized that a lot of this actually helps us inform our relationship to God as well. So I want to give you three of these different attachment styles. And I think maybe as you're listening to this, you might pick up on, hey, yeah, some of this is me. And I'm not an expert in this field. We have experts in this field in our church. I could probably give you some more information. But from what I understand, you can kind of vacillate between these different ones depending on the relationship that you're in. So nobody's like one attachment style. But let's look at these just quickly, and I think you'll see how it can help us understand our relationship with God. First is the dismissive attachment style. Now, all of these attachment styles form kind of in the early stages of life as we're connecting with parents and friends and family around us. But the first one is a dismissive attachment style. And this is what it says. This happens when we learn early on that no one will really respond to our needs, or most of the time. So we shut down our desire for connection. We act like we don't need people, but deep down we do. We've just learned not to hope for it. So the dismissive attachment style says, I don't need anybody. I don't need love. I don't need connection. I'm good on my own. And this can become a very hardened style, right? They need love, they need connection, but, I think this is every teenage boy, right? Like, I'm good, I don't need love, don't hug me. But deep down, every single one of them needs to know they're loved. So we can fall into this dismissive. I'm good, I don't need nobody, okay? And we can often treat God the same way. God, I'm good, I don't need anybody, because we don't know if we can trust Him to be there for us. The second one is the distracted attachment style. And this comes from inconsistent love bonding, okay? So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Okay? So the attachment light, the light on the dashboard, stays on all the time. We're always looking for attachment. So we can become clingy, anxious, on edge, always scanning to see if someone will notice us. This is the people pleaser, right? Will you love me? Will you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Will you love me if I do this? You love me if I do this? How about if I do this? How about if I don't do that? Do you love me? Is kind of the cry of the distracted attachment style. Always trying to find not what's going on inside of them, but what can I do to get you to love me? Now, take that briefly and just apply it to your relationship with God. If you spend your whole life trying to get God to love you, you're always like, God, how about this? Do you like this? Do you love this? Do you love me now? How about now? Like, that is a fear-based attachment to God. Okay. The last one is the disorganized attachment style. I didn't come up with these terms, by the way, and if you want more information, I can point you to some resources. But this one happens when the same person who gives us joy is also the person who hurts us. Okay. So maybe you grew up in a home or in relationships where the person you love the most, or was supposed to love you the most, was also the person that was constantly hurting you the most. Okay? And this could include abuse, but it also could be emotional neglect or all kinds of different things. And this can create deep confusion because we want closeness, but we're afraid of it at the same time. Relationships feel like chaos. So if you've ever been in a relationship with someone who wants to get real close real fast and then pull away because they're afraid of it, maybe disorganized attachment styles. Now, all of us, because nobody grows up in a perfect home. Like, that doesn't exist. And for me as a parent, I have to recognize that my kids are not growing up in a perfect home. Like, I don't love perfectly. My wife doesn't love perfectly. We're on a journey of learning what that looks like. But so all of us grow up with these different kinds of attachment styles, and it kind of plays out in our life. But what's the remedy to this? Because all of these cause us to live out of fear, wanting to attach but not sure if we can, wanting to build connections but afraid to, wanting to be close to God but at the same time afraid of Him. Sometimes we're trying really hard to earn God's love, to attach. But when we mess up, when we fall short, it's like, okay, we are unloved now. So what do? What does the gospel have to say about this? And we're going to look at the story of Israel coming out of Egypt today and some of their wilderness wanderings, or before they get to the wilderness, but they're wandering on their way to Sinai. And we're going to see how they are relating to God. They have just come out of Egypt, where they had a relationship with God. They knew about God, but all the other gods of Egypt had been kind of a part of their life. And there's a question standing out in their mind. So they've just come out of the Red Sea. They passed through it. Now God is delivering them to the Promised Land. And the question is God with us? Is He with us? Because in their frame of mind, gods were sort of territorial. This was God. This was, the Egyptian god's land. This is God's land over here. Is God with us as we're traveling? Is He with us in the wilderness? Is God with us? Has He attached to us? Does He love us? Does He care about us? And so what we're going to see is that attachment, building strong attachment, begins by recognizing presence. And think about it like this. As a child, a little baby, when they see mom and dad's face, right? And they can only see a few feet in front of them. That's why you got to get real close to them. You do, right? You start talking baby talk to them. What they're seeing is that presence, and immediately their face will light up. Why? Because the joy sensors in their brain are firing off because mom is here, dad is here, that relationship is here. That's all they know in the world, is that face. And that from that joy comes attachment. Right? The joy that you have as a parent looking at this little child is what forms attachment. And this is the same in any kind of relationship. We want to go back to the things that bring us joy. We're designed by God for that. We go back to the things that bring us joy. And if we don't get joy here, we will leave it and try to find joy somewhere else. And so the Bible keeps saying over and over and over again, look, when you don't find joy, don't turn to the other gods. Don't turn to sin. Don't turn away from keep drawing into me, God says. Right? If you're not experiencing joy, draw closer into me. And attachment begins as we recognize the presence of God in our life. This is what Israel had to learn first and foremost, is that God was with them. When I think about God, whenever growing up, I always thought about God as far off, distant. He loved me because he sent Jesus to die, but he's really not involved with my life. I'm kind of on my own. I got to figure it out. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to make him mad, but he's not really involved. And that is not the picture that we see in Scripture. It's that he is intimately involved in our life, that he is a part of everything that we do. So Israel had to learn that God was present in their wandering. Let's look at a few passages here. Look at Exodus 15, 22 through 27. We're going to kind of go quickly through several scriptures this morning just to kind of illustrate the point. So then Moses led Israel on from the Red Sea, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. They journeyed for 3 days in the wilderness without finding water. So they're not finding any water. Then came to Marah, but they could not drink the water at Marah because it was bitter. That is why it's named Marah. Marah meant bitter. So the people began to grumble. Right? They're thirsty, and they're wondering, what are we going to drink? Now, this sounds like a child, right? They begin to cry out because they're thirsty. And they've forgotten that their dad, God, is with them. So they begin to grumble and complain. What are we going to drink? So Moses cries out to the Lord. And the Lord showed him a tree. What an odd thing. God, we need water. Well, look at this tree. What is it that God is teaching them? Right? Water doesn't typically come from trees, and especially when you throw trees into water, does it make water sweet? What is it that God is saying, look, I can provide for you from a tree the water that you need. Later on, God will provide water from a rock. Like, it's not the thing that you need, it's the presence of God. That's what we need. When he threw it into the water became drinkable. The Lord made a statute and an ordinance for them at Marah, and he tested them there. He said, if you will carefully obey the Lord your God, do what is right in his sight, pay attention to his commands, and keep all his statutes, I will not afflict any illnesses on you that I inflicted on the Egyptians. So basically he's saying, look, the plagues that you saw in Egypt, I'm not going to do that to you. Like, I'm near to you. I'm intimate to you. I love you. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to protect you. You don't have to be afraid of me. Yes, there is a loyalty that if you disassociate from me, if you say other gods are God, then yeah, you're basically coming out from underneath my protection. But look, if you will just walk with me, I will protect you. I'm going to walk with you. For I am the Lord who heals, not afflicts. You see the picture? Now, he's not saying here that individual Israelites will not get sick. That's not what he's saying. In fact, we see as they begin to wander through the wilderness, a whole generation is going to die because of their sin. He's not saying that, listen, the kind of the health and wealth mindset of if you just trust God, everything good is going to happen. No, he's saying to the people, I am with you, I love you, you need to see my heart. I'm not going to inflict judgment on you. Instead, I'm the one who brings healing. You can trust me. Draw close to my presence. You don't have to be afraid. There are rules and boundaries. We would see that later in Leviticus and other books, that there are rules about being in my presence because I'm holy and you're sinful. So we got to work out this relationship, and we'll get that when we get to Mount Sinai. But you need to know that I'm not against you. I'm for you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs, 70 date palms, and they camped there by the water. They have a little vacation, right? God takes them to a watery place, a beautiful place, after he's provided for them there in the wilderness. So, while we're growing, right, and this is what Israel had to learn, while we're growing, we learn to attach through trusting. And this is, so take your attachment style that you have, whatever one you feel like makes the most sense, disorganized or whatever. As you're growing, you've got to learn to attach to God, and you start by trusting him. Can I trust you? I mean, this was the original problem in the garden, right? When the serpent shows up to Eve and says, hey, did God really say, surely you won't die? What is he saying? He's saying, you can't trust God. You can't trust him. He wants what's best for him. You should want what's best for you. And instead, what the Bible is saying, look, if you want to attach to a God who is love, you've got to start with trust. Do you trust him? And when you start to do this, right, let's say you're anxious about something in your life. Okay, you've got some anxiety about, some fear in some area. When you say, okay, I'm going to trust that God is with me, he's going to care for me through this, immediately you're going to have thoughts and impulses come up and say, no, we can't. We've got to take care of this. We've got to worry about this. We've got to make sure that we are safe. And all of that is coming from a place of fear. But as soon as you say, I'm going to trust instead of walking in fear, fear is going to come to the surface. And that is the spiritual battle. That's why this is a part of this series. Because the enemy wants to use your fear and lack of loving attachment that all of us carry through life. He wants to use that to springboard you into more and more sin, to a lack of love. So as we grow, we learn to attach through trusting Jesus. Israel had to learn to trust God, trust that he's there to meet their needs. Look at chapter 16. The entire Israelite community departed from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin. Now, that's not English Sin, that's a name, which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they had left the land of Egypt, the entire Israelite community grumbled. They're grumbling again, right? Against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. What's it about this time? It was water before. What's the problem now? They said, if only we had died in the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat and ate all the bread we wanted. So basically, it's God, we're hungry now. We were thirsty before, now we're hungry. And the God who brought us water, surely he can't bring us food out here in the wilderness. They've not learned that he's going to provide for their needs. They know that he's there, but will he provide? Instead, you brought us into the wilderness to make this whole assembly die of hunger. That was the plan. Now, let's take them out in the wilderness so they'll all die. Do you hear the grumbling? This sounds like a good Facebook post, right? I mean, good thing Facebook didn't exist when Moses was leading the Israelites. It would have been a lot worse. Then the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. So to get water, God says, hey, throw that stick into the water. To get bread, he says, I'm just going to make it fall from the sky. Why is he doing this? I mean, he could have provided, a big, swarm of birds, flock of birds that they could kill and eat. But he says, I'm just going to provide it for you. It's going to come from a place you wouldn't expect. Why? Because he's teaching them to what? Trust him. This is how attachment happens. Right? It's trusting. You're going to meet my needs. You're going to be there for me. You're going to care for me. Even whenever I don't feel lovable or like you like me, you're still going to be there for me. So you're leaning into that. It says that I'm going to make it rain bread from heaven for you. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. This way, I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. So he's providing for them, but he's also placing before them an opportunity to trust him. Are you going to trust me or not? So here was basically what he said. I'm going to bring enough food down for one day. Will you trust me to provide for you today and not gather so much that you think I'm not going to provide for you tomorrow? So you're going to gather too much than you would need for a day. And so he said, just get enough for your family for one day. I'll provide for you again the next day. The Lord said to Moses, I have heard the complaints of all the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will eat bread until you are full. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. Do you see the gentleness that God is? God could have said, I'm so tired of your grumbling. I will turn this caravan around. I'm going to take you back to Egypt. He didn't. He said, I'm going to care for you. Now, before we start pointing fingers at Israel, this is us. Right? This is our story. God, you should have provided. You should have given. Where is this? I need this. Right? We're grumbling. And some of that is like just an immediate response to a hard thing, right? But what God is teaching Israel and what God is teaching us is, would you just trust me? Trust me. Attach to my loving presence. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. So at evening, quail came and covered the camp. In the morning, there was a layer of dew all around the camp. When the layer of dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, what is it? Because they don't know what it was. Moses told them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much of it as each person needs to eat. You may take 2 quarts per individual, according to the number of the people each of you has in your tent. So Israel has to learn to trust God daily. Think about a little child again. Every single day, every single moment, they're dependent upon that parent for love and attention and care, food, nourishment. Jesus says, why do you worry? Your Father in heaven knows the birds of the air and He cares for them. He knows what they need. Does He not also care for you? But if you struggle with attachment, if you struggle to see God as loving you, you might say, yeah, God cares for the birds, but He doesn't know how bad I am. Or He knows how bad I am. He's not going to care for me in the same way. Israel had to learn to trust God every single day, and so do we. So the Israelites did this. They collected enough for the day. Some gathered a lot, some a little. When they measured it by quarts, the person who gathered a lot had no surplus, and the person who gathered a little had no shortage. Each gathered as much as he needed to eat. So they're slowly learning to trust. Moses said to them, no one is to let any of it remain until morning. So what you got, eat. All right, we're not going to store this stuff. We are on the move, right? We're not building, barns to store all of it. But they didn't listen to Moses. Some people left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank. Therefore, Moses was angry with them. So they're bringing pollution into the camp because they're not trusting God. Okay, let's just wind that back and think about it metaphorically or allegorically, however you want to think about it. So when I don't trust God, I'm bringing into my life a sense of corruption and stank. I'm bringing into my life decomposing. Whenever I trust God day in and day out, okay, I'm going to trust Him today. I'm going to trust Him today. I'm going to trust Him today. Well, I've got this thing coming. I'm going to worry. What I'm doing is I'm inviting into my life things that will corrupt. Okay. When I trust the Lord for today and I trust Him for tomorrow, this is not about long-range planning. I have a calendar on my phone. I check it. I make sure that, that's not about that. But it is about, I'm going to trust him for today, and I'm not going to fear that he's not going to be with me tomorrow. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much food, 4 quarts apiece, and all the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. They did this because the Lord had said, tomorrow is the day of complete rest. So this was the Sabbath. Bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil and set aside everything left over to be kept until morning. So on the sixth day, God allowed whatever they had gathered to remain 2 days because he had ordered them to rest on the Sabbath. So 6th day they traveled, 6th day they gathered, but on the Sabbath they rested. Again, they're learning to trust in the goodness of God. When God says, rest in me, he even provides so that they can actually rest on the Sabbath. They can enjoy presence. They can enjoy God's relationship. They don't even have to gather food on that day. So they set it aside until morning as Moses commanded, and it didn't stink and have maggots in it. That's great. That's great news. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath of the Lord. Today you won't find any in the field. So God didn't put any out in the field. He had provided the day before. You see what's happening here? God is saying, I'm going to give you clear instructions on life. If you'll obey me, if you'll listen to me, then you'll find relationship with me. You'll find connection with me. You'll be, but if you ignore me, you're going to find maggots in your home. So it's learning to trust him day in and day out. For 6 days you will gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be none. Verse 28, then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commands and instructions? So that some of them gathered, some of them didn't gather enough. Understand that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he will give you 2 days' worth of bread. Each of you stay where you are. No one is to leave his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. So they're slowly learning to trust. Right? They're slowly learning to depend on God. Now, they're not going to get it. Israel is going to keep messing up. And the truth is, we're on a journey with them, right? So just like when you got saved, if you're a follower of Jesus, you left Egypt, you left, the place of sin, and you're on a journey with God. There's going to be days where you're going to grumble and complain, and there's going to be days when you're going to be walking in trust and faith. We want to keep progressing, we want to keep growing. The last point is that attachment is fueled by and results in joy. Okay, so it starts with trust. You've got to learn to trust. You've got to say, I'm going to trust you, God. I'm going to force myself to trust you. I'm going to work on this. But that attachment is fueled by and it results in joy. When we attach well, we have joy. We have joy. There's a meme video that's going around on the internet of husbands taking videos of their spouses, like getting off a plane or something like that. So they're coming through the airport, and so they're videoing their spouse, and the base of the caption is "When my wife sees me." Okay, and there's some of these that are really funny because whenever the wife sees them, she's like, oh, like what are you doing here? But for this particular set of videos, when the wife or the girlfriend sees them, like their face lights up and they run over and they give them a big hug. Why is that? Well, it's not because they don't like this guy. It's because of joy that's filling their body and they want to attach. Right? The reason you want to spend time with your best friend is because there's joy involved in that relationship. And it may look 1,000 different ways, but the reason that we have relationships we do is because there's joy. Right? Joy is what connects us. Joy is what helps us to be able to stay connected through difficult circumstances when things get hard. It's the joy that we connect with. And so attachment to God means that I've got to produce in my life, I've got to focus on joy. I've got to attach to joy. So obedience is a part of connection. Trusting is a part of connection. But joy is a part of connection. And this is the part I think as Baptists we can sometimes miss because we want to focus on what does the Bible say? I want to do it. Okay? And yes and amen to that. But we forget that we're called to enjoy God. We're called to enjoy His presence. If we skip back to Exodus 15, just as Israel is coming out of the Red Sea, I just want to read through this passage. And I want you to listen for the joy and the rejoicing that they share, okay? I'm not going to make any comment on it, I'm just going to read it. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. They said, I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. He has thrown the horse and its rider into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him. My Father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. He threw Pharaoh's chariots and his army into the sea. The elite of his officers were drowned in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. Lord, your right hand is glorious in power. Lord, your right hand shattered the enemy. You overthrew your adversaries by your great majesty. You unleashed your burning wrath. It consumed them like stubble. The water heaped up at the blast of your nostrils. The current stood firm like a dam. The watery depths congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue. I will overtake. I will divide the spoil. My desire will be gratified at their expense. I will draw my sword. My hand will destroy them. Nah, but you blew your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Lord, who is like you among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, revered with praises, performing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, and the earth swallowed them. With your faithful love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. You will guide them to your holy dwelling with your strength. When the peoples hear, they will shudder. Anguish will seize the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom will be terrified. Trembling will seize the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan will panic. Terror and dread will follow them. They will be as still as a stone because of your powerful arm until your people pass by, Lord, until the people whom you purchased pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your possession. Lord, you have prepared the place for your dwelling. Lord, your hands have established the sanctuary. The Lord will reign forever and ever. You think they were joy-filled? If we were to write this, Heavenly Father, we praise you for all the many gifts that you've given to us today. And we ask, Lord, that you bless us and those that come after us. Amen. Okay, that was good, but where's the joy? And I want to suggest to you that joy is something you can practice. You can practice joy by focusing on who God is, what He's done, how He's working in your life. I'll give you an example. This is from just, if my kid has a play coming up, okay? And this is hypothetical, okay? But let's say my kid has a play, and I am afraid that if I don't go, he's going to be disappointed in me, or the teachers will think I'm a bad parent, or my wife will be mad at me if I don't go. And I decide, okay, I'm going to go to the play, but it's all kind of coming from a place of fear. I don't want to disappoint anybody. Like, I'm doing the same action, but it's motivated from a place of fear. Okay? But now let's roll it back. Let's say I focus on the fact that if I go, my son will see me and he'll feel encouraged and we'll have a great moment and maybe I'll laugh and there's going to be joy in that moment. Now my motivation is not one of fear, but it's one of joy. And so now I go into it with an anticipation that I'm going to experience something good in my life. I'm going to be a blessing to someone else. And now I can experience that in a fresh way. What if you took that same mindset and applied it to your relationship with God? Okay, so tomorrow morning you're sitting down to do your quiet time. I'm going to do this because I don't want to sin. I don't want God to be upset with me. I don't want to mess up, right? Okay, I'm going to do it. You're coming from a place of fear. Okay, that's how it's beginning. What if you switched it and said, okay, I get to commune with the God of the universe who loves me, and I get to sit face to face with Him. And I get to hear His word, and I get to be changed and transformed so that I can begin to walk in His path, and I can experience His love in a fresh way. What if you begin to practice that joy? Now, your time with God is not something you're like, oh, I got to do that. Now, it slowly becomes something, I get to do this? And one of the ways that we practice joy as a church is through singing. This is one of the reasons we sing songs in worship. We're practicing joy. We're practicing lifting our hearts and lifting our souls to God. And that's what Israel was doing here in Exodus 15. But notice God's heart. Later on in the book of Exodus, whenever God is passing by Moses, it says, the Lord passed in front of him and proclaimed, the Lord is a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger and abounding in faithful love and truth. I mean, that's a person that you can rejoice in, that you can take joy in. Now, it's not to say that God ignores sin. Look what he says. Maintaining faithful love to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity, rebellion, and sin. But he will not leave the guilty unpunished. God does not ignore sin, but he will forgive anyone who requests it, who comes humbly to him. And through Christ, we have access to God. So, in this passage, we see a God who loves us, who wants us to know him intimately. All right, so what's our one small step? This one's real simple. Practice the joy of the Lord today. And if the picture of a small child kind of being held by his parent is helpful to you, you can use that. But just the idea that God is holding us and he wants us to just enjoy him. That when we smile at him, he smiles back. That he delights in you. So what does that look like for you today? What does it look like to practice joy? Maybe for you it means turning on some praise music and just enjoying Jesus. Maybe for you it's going outside and just enjoying God's creation and just giving him glory. Maybe it means for you journaling. Maybe it's spending time with close friends and just experiencing that relationship and rejoicing in that. But practicing joy. It will do amazing things for your mental health, but most importantly, it'll do amazing things for your spiritual health. It'll direct your heart toward God, and you will begin to attach to him in fresh ways. And what will happen is God will begin to heal those false attachments that you have. That place that used to be motivated by fear will over time begin to be motivated more by love. And so the reason that we talk about this in a sermon series on spiritual warfare is because I think this is at the heart of our battle. It's at the heart of learning to follow Jesus day in and day out, is learning to connect to his love and his care for us. All right. So I'm going to ask our musicians to come. We're going to have a time to be able to take the Lord's Supper together. And here in just a minute, if you're a follower of Jesus, right, you're welcome to participate with us. You don't have to be a member of this church to take the Lord's Supper. But the reason that we do this, Jesus told us to, and he tells us, remember my body and my blood. Remember that I died on the cross for you. Remember that I rose again. Remember what I did. So this is an act of joy. This is not a religious exercise that we just do because, oh, Jesus told us to. What if, when we took the bread and we took the cup, instead of just sitting there kind of mindlessly, what if we said, God, I'm so thankful for what you did for me. I'm so thankful that you were willing to die, that you actually practice the joy of the Lord in that moment. I want to invite you to do that.